Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Above the Bar podcast, where each week we belly up to the bar with a new guest, find out what they do, who they are, and what makes them great. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Alrighty, folks, welcome back to the Above the Bar podcast. It's your host, Sean. We've bellied up to the bar here on February 4th, the first day of February. Gosh, it's already February. We already scooted through 1 month out of 12 here, so we're getting ready to get things going. So today we're going to be talking about one of my personal favorite topics, something I find very interesting, I'm very passionate about. Most people will tell you that for whatever reason, they think that this is a liberals topic, and I absolutely would argue with you all day long that it is not. That's who broke the system. This is more of a conservative topic. So why not have another person on, just like our friend Jeff Diskovic, who's dealt with this. We're going to have somebody else on, coming from us live from the land that God forgot, up in Chicago land, in a town that none of us have ever even been to. So joining us today here, let me get all my sound effects up because I'm always the last person to remember to put my own sound effects up. So joining us all the way up in Indiana, it is Mr. Brian. Brian, look, I'm gonna try it. Let's see if I get it right here.
You're fine.
Vukadinovich.
Perfect. Thank you.
Did I get it right?
Absolutely perfect.
Look here, folks. Brian's got more letters in his name than are in the alphabet. So just trust me, I got it right. So again, we're going to be talking about why is judicial oversight and accountability so important in the American justice system. We see it today everywhere. I don't care what side of the fence you're on. If you listen to the news here in New York, we just heard that somebody that was involved in one of the Trump cases that was out there, that they leaked information to a grand jury. And then we just heard, and then on the other side, you have people like the AG who can't even follow congressional laws for the Epstein file. So somebody's got to be watching these folks. So Brian and I are going to be talking about that. But before we get too far, get too deep into this, as always, folks, we got to be talking about the board over my right shoulder. That's the big board for Sticker and a Cause. If you have something you believe in, something you're supporting, something you want people to know all about, make sure you're reaching out to us on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, X, Instagram, TikTok. Our website is the AboveTheBarPodcast.com. Our email is the AboveTheBarPodcast@gmail.com. Reach out to me. Tell me what you got going on. Send me I'll tell you where to send the sticker. We read about you live here on the air so everybody can know about you and what you got going on. Listen, folks, that's how we all grow together. And then we got to talk about our sponsors, the people that pay the bills around this place. That's Budget Blinds of East Greenbush, Hudson, Coxsackie, Schoharie, Delmar, and Clifton Park, North America's largest custom window treatment company. Thank you, everybody who just joined. They're on YouTube. America's largest custom window treatment company. They're dealing with everything from blinds, shades, shutters, drapery. And during the month of February, they're offering 20% off your entire order. And as always, if you tell them that you're there to belly up to the bar, they're going to give you another 5% off of that order. That's custom window treatments. And look, folks, if you're in the Northeast like myself, or up where Brian is up in the Midwest, it is cold. It is like ignorant cold, like the type of cold that we haven't seen in a long time. And this is your opportunity. Call your local custom window treatment company, that Budget Blinds. Let them know that you're there. They can put window treatments in there to help keep your house warm and save some energy. Because if you're anything like it where we are here in New York, all of our bills just doubled because they let them. That's another oversight we need. So make sure you're reaching out to your local Budget Blinds there. That's Budget Blinds of East Greenbush, Hudson, Coxsackie, Schoharie, Clifton Park, and Delmar. All right, Brian, all that's done. All right, ready?
It's very important. And first of all, Sean, thanks for having me on. You have a great show. I've watched several of your segments, and I really like your format and the topics you cover. You cover a wide range, and I'm thrilled to be here with you today. And as for your sponsors, people need to support your sponsors, because without your sponsors, we wouldn't be able to have these kinds of shows that are important, for us to get our message out to the people. We got, there's a lot of information that people need to know about that hopefully you and I today will be able to enlighten. Our topic today will be talking about the judiciary and judicial corruption and unfairness issue, things that people are going through in the country. That I've experienced a lot of it, and I'll talk about some of that here in a little while. So you have a very important show. I can't stress enough. I'm a former educator. I'm a retired teacher, and when I do these kinds of shows like you have here, I consider this to be kind of like my classroom, where I can talk to the people out into the public and maybe teach them a little bit about the topic that, on the judiciary and so on and so forth that are important in people's lives, whether they sometimes think it's important to them or not. It's everything that goes on in the judiciary is very important. It affects all of our lives, whether you've had a court case or not, because decisions that come down from judges, especially the higher courts, and we're seeing it all today, with all this ICE stuff going on and everything in the country, and the decisions that are coming from the judges and the appellate courts and the Supreme Court. Those become laws that affect everybody, whether you like it or not. That's a fact. So people need to be paying attention to these kinds of things. It's very important.
Well, and I agree with everything, and I appreciate the kind words. I want to kind of start at the beginning with you, though. Like you say, in your bio, you talk about there's been numerous nefarious activities going on with district courts and different magistrates. But how did you personally get into this fight? How did this fight start for you?
It started back. As I said, I'm a retired teacher. I went to college. My dream, my goal in my life was to be a Division I head basketball coach. I'm really into basketball, and I that was my dream. That was my goal. So I had to get a teaching degree. You have to teach, and start, from that level on up. High school. I coached in high school, and I got into college coaching towards the end of my career before I retired. And what happened was, back in the day, it was in 1981. I'll try to make this as short as I can because it's a long story. But it's what got me into where I'm at today. I'm kind of like the monster that the system created. Actually, I was in Valparaiso, Indiana, with my mom. We walked into a bank where I banked at to do some banking business. It was a Saturday morning. We were going to go do some shopping, and so we went to the bank, and then I was shocked. The next thing I knew is shortly after I walked in, I'm surrounded by police, Valparaiso, Indiana police, and they put me up against the wall, grabbed me, shoved me
What?
around. Oh yeah. This is absolute. This is our country here. This is what's going on. There's a lot of people
So,
that
I'm going to pause this for a second. So you were in the bank just doing your normal banking, nothing out of the ordinary, no interactions with anybody, nothing.
just walked in with my mom, was headed over to the teller, and to get some money for the day shopping and so forth. And before I could even get close to the teller, I'm surrounded by police. And the next thing I know is I'm against the wall, and there were several of them, and they're just basically just beating the hell out of me. And I'm trying to get away from them and so forth. And my mom's trying to get them off of me, and the bank people were trying to get them off of me. So to put some context here, what happened was somebody was at the bank just before I got there, and there was some kind of a problem that this person created. They told me that he was in a pickup truck and he was doing something out in the parking lot and some crazy stuff. So the bank called the police, and then they got there and they assumed it was me. And they were crazy. You see them on TV all the time, even with ICE now. They're screaming and stuff, and they were just going crazy. You couldn't even talk to them. So I'm saying, what are you doing? Get your hands off me. What's going on? And the bank people are trying to explain to them that they had the wrong guy, but they were just crazy. They were just out of it. So finally, when it was all said and done, they finally realized they had the wrong guy. They finally realized it. And then rather than just saying, "Hey, we're sorry,"
Right.
you
My bad.
know, apologize, and then we could kind of go our ways. Then no, what did they do? They had to come up with a fictitious, a bogus charge to justify in their minds, we're in trouble now. We beat this
Right.
guy up. We gotta make it look like he did something here. So then they hit me with this bogus charge. It was 1981, a long time ago. It was either like disorderly conduct or resisting arrest, something like that, because I
Right.
fought them back. And I never denied that I resisted them. I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't know what was going on. They weren't even telling me what was going on. And I told them, "You get your hands off me." So then they put me through that. So they arrested me. Did all the stuff, booked me, and I had to go to the jail and bond out and do all that kind of stuff. And at that time, I wasn't a pro se litigant. I didn't have any experience with court stuff, and so I had to hire a lawyer. So we go to trial. I have to pay a lawyer. We go to trial, and so we have a trial. I testify. My mom testifies, and the police testify. And the judge is just rolling his eyes throughout the trial. You could just see it's like, well, what are you guys doing, man? And then so then the judge finds me not guilty, and he chastises the police. He said to the police, "What's wrong with you guys? You realize you had the wrong guy. Why didn't you just apologize and let him go?
And
And
just
you
be
put
done
him
with
through
it.
this." Well, then, so they got upset about that. And then after that, I filed a brutality lawsuit and a false arrest lawsuit for what they put me through. And I received an out of court settlement. And then after I received the out of court settlement, it became, headline news in the newspaper and so forth, the local newspaper. And then the police chief of Valparaiso at the time, his name was Richard Buchanan. Then his statement to the newspaper was, "Oh, our officers did nothing wrong. They shouldn't have, Vukadinovich shouldn't have received any money for this. We did nothing wrong." Well, the judge said you did a lot wrong here. So, when the police in Valparaiso saw that, hey, our police chief's got our back here, and this guy's made us look bad here publicly. They don't like it when they lose at trial, for one thing.
Right.
They hate that. And then when everybody in the newspapers reading about how wrong they were and they had to pay money and so forth. And then after that, what I'm going to see, your audience probably isn't, what I'm going to say here, your audience probably isn't going to believe. After that, I could not go to the grocery store without getting arrested. I got arrested 10 times. 10 times. You
And
name
for
it,
what?
and I was arrested for it. Not having my headlights on at 4:17 p.m. in the afternoon. That was one of the arrests. The other one, and then of course that was the ridiculousness of that. And there's all kinds of things that went on with that one, with more brutality and so forth. Same police officers and so forth. And then speeding. And then when I would ask them, "Why are you stopping me?" then it becomes a big deal, and then it becomes resisting arrest. Why you can't question me and all this kind of stuff. And then we go to court. The judge throws it out. "What's wrong with you people? You didn't even radar them. You used the speedometer, trying to screw them around with all this stuff." And then we were at a restaurant in Valparaiso, and then I'm surrounded by police, red lights all over the place, cars driving by, people in the restaurant. They're all thinking I probably tried to rob the restaurant or something because of all the police that were there. So then the same thing again. We go to court. The judge throws it out, and that was one of and it just went
Let
on.
me ask something here, Brian. I got to
Sure,
pause you. I got to pause you here for a second. So you're in this process. You're constantly being harassed. I mean, and like you
absolutely.
said, this was early '80s, so there wasn't like cell phone anything. It wasn't like 10 people are around videotaping and going, "Look, see what they're doing." And listen, I got an uncle. He's since passed away, but he was a Baltimore County cop. Early '80s cops were a little bit of a different animal. My
Hmm.
dad used to tell me, if a cop where I grew up at, you're going to get your ass kicked before you ever get a right read to you. So you're dealing with that environment. At what point here, and especially because you're going back and seeing, it sounds like the same judge, it's a smaller town. at what point does the judge finally does the judge ever come to you and say, listen, if you don't guys don't stop, we're going to really have a problem? Does he ever even step in?
Uh, First of all, I'm glad you brought that point up about the cell phones and the videos, because that
Right.
made it a lot tougher back then, because people tend to want to believe the police, and you sound like you're a troublemaker,
Right.
and this and that. So it was hard. I was able to do it, but it was extremely hard to
Oh, I
do.
bet.
So I'm glad you brought that point up. That's important. One time they even put me in the back seat of a police car with a German Shepherd dog with my hands tied behind my back, and but no
With the dog.
video. They denied it. Of course, there's no video of it, and again, it was dismissed. But your point about the judge, his name was Bryce Billings, and he had enough after about the, I believe it was the sixth or seventh arrest. They came back. I get stopped. Remember I told you about the deal with being stopped for not having my headlights on. A week later, the same cop, dirty cop, Richard Zentz was his name, uh, who'd been finally got kicked off the force. He'd been doing all kinds of stuff. They caught him finally, and then so then I told him, I said, look, man, I've had it. I'm going home. I was only a couple blocks away from home. I said, I'm going home. Okay, I'm not playing you guys' game anymore. So I go home. Make a long story short, he's radioing his buddies. They're all there to beat the hell out of me in my yard in front of my mom, my brother, my neighbors. Take me, take me back to jail again. Charge me, and then I'm asking the police at the county jail, what am I being charged with here? Well, we don't know yet. We don't know yet. And then finally, here they come with bogus charges. Speeding was the probable cause. And then he bad mouthed us when he was asking questions, and all that kind of stuff. Okay. Okay, so what happened was, we're getting back to the judge here now. The police went back to that court, that same court that they prosecuted me in unsuccessfully several times. So they go back in there, and the judge says, what are you guys doing here? They said, well, we're filing more charges against Vukadinovich. Judge Billings says, get out of my courtroom. We're done with this stuff. We're done. Don't come back here with any more of this nonsense. So he kicks them out. He actually kicked them out on their ears. So what do? They drive 20, well, probably 15 miles or so, 20 minutes or so down the road to Portage, Indiana, another court, a county court in Porter County. So they file the charges there after Billings kicked them out of his courtroom. So now I'm in front of this Judge Harper, Mary Harper. So we have a hearing. And then Judge Harper, I filed a motion for a discovery, for reports, and they took my picture, and there were pictures of them with their fingers stuck in my face and so forth. And I was trying to get those pictures in discovery so I could show it to a jury. And see, it was funny anyway, because they actually took me to the police station this time rather than the county jail. One might ask, well, what's the big deal of that? The big deal is normally they take you to the county jail and book you. They wanted to take me back to the police station where they could play games with me in front of their compadres there at the station, and put
Oh.
me through it there. That's where there was a picture with, they had his fingers stuck just like this, and in my side of my face. And then so I asked for all those records, the pictures and so forth. So then the first thing I asked the Judge Harper, I said, Judge, why are we here? Why are we in this court here in Portage when this happened in Valparaiso? Why are we here? And she said, good question. She says to the prosecutor, Nancy Vadic, okay, just clown prosecutor, who'd been after me in all the other cases as well. And she was mad because she could never, get a conviction against me. So she really had it in for me anyway. So then Judge Harper says, okay, Miss Prosecutor, why are we here? And Vadic says to the judge, oh, well, the Judge Billings, transferred the case here, which was a 100% blatant lie. So I told Judge Harper, I said, Judge, Vadic just lied to you. Judge Billings did not transfer. Judge Billings, in fact, threw them out of his courtroom by the ears. He threw them out. That's why we're here. They're shopping for a place to file more bogus charges against me. So that was the actual. And then Vedic says, "Oh well, I guess I was mistaken that it was just filed here, and all of that stuff." Okay. So then we have another hearing after that. So I file these motions just so your audience knows whenever you get in trouble of some kind, you get arrested or, whatever you want to do diligent discovery, if you're going to have to defend the charges, you want all the information that they have, because it can be very helpful to you. Because a lot of them are actually very stupid, I hate to say. I mean, but I'm just stating a fact here. And they just do stupid things. They'll write stupid things down, and they want to impress each other sometimes. And look what I said, and all of this. So you want to pick that stuff apart. So then we have this. We have another hearing, and judge says, "Okay, Mr. Vukadinovich, it's your motion. Go ahead." I said, "Judge, I want all of the information that the Porter County Prosecutor's Office has on me, anything relative to me. There were pictures that they took of me during this arrest. I want those pictures." And I said to the judge, I said, one of the pictures is going to show how they had their fingers stuck right in my face. And then and I said, I want any communications that have been undertaken between the Porter County Sheriff's Department, the Valparaiso Police Department, the Porter County Prosecutor's Office, and any other law enforcement agencies, because I knew that they had been involved in a letter writing campaign. They've been informing other prosecutors in the surrounding area if they can somehow get me for something, that they will be happy to cooperate with them. I knew that. And I also knew that they contacted even the Chicago Police Department. "Hey, have you got anything on Vukadinovich?" Okay. I had some inside sources that I was getting some information from and so forth. So,
and this is all still 1981, right?
This was in 1983. Now this kept going on and on and on. And
so I gotta pause you for a second, because this is absolutely fascinating. And I just want to, real quick, folks, if you're just joining us, Brian's kind of giving us the backstory of how he got into this world of overseeing and accountability for justice systems. And he's kind of giving us the rundown of what happened to him early on in his life after graduating from college and how we got to this point. So all this keeps going on. And listen, folks, if you have other questions for Brian, please drop them. George was asking what year all this happened at.
Sure.
And make sure you're checking out Outlaw Blitz podcast, folks. It's our buddies, George and Heine. So keep going. Or Winnie, excuse me. I don't know why I said Heine. It's Winnie.
Sean, actually, this particular one was in 1986. This kept going on for years. Okay.
So why not just move away? Like just being realistic.
That's a fair question, and my answer, and a lot of people said that to me, and my answer is this: I don't run away, and I don't back down. I know that may sound macho, but I just think that when people do that, it just makes the problem worse, because then
I would agree.
But if you stand up, and that's been my thing here now, my theme throughout the rest of my life is stand up, because there's too much nonsense that's going on out there that they get away with because people don't stand up to them. They bend, they buckle. This cost me a lot. It cost me a lot in teaching jobs, coaching.
Oh, I can imagine.
Oh, absolutely.
Because nobody wants to deal with that.
I knew that, absolutely. I knew that going in when I decided, but you know what? I'm sorry. When I look in the mirror, I like what I see. If I would have backed down back then and not fought back, I wouldn't like what I see in the mirror today. It's just very important. I just feel very strongly about that. So then what happened was that's kind of what led to me becoming a pro se litigator, because then we started getting involved with civil rights lawsuits and so forth. But let me just take one more minute here to say what happened at that hearing. So then when I asked for all, I said, Judge, I want all the communications that have been going on. There's been letters that have been written to other prosecutors and police agencies, how they're going to get me. The jury needs to know about this. That's what I said to the judge. So the jury will know what's actually going on here. This is a bunch of nonsense about why they stopped me. So she says to Vedic again, Nancy Vedic, okay, what about it? And Vedic says, oh, he's blowing smoke. There's no pictures. There's no letters that were written about him. He's just blowing smoke. That was what Vedic said. Okay. Well, she did a really bad thing for herself because now she's on the record. I get the transcript of all these things. So I'm getting ready for trial. So I told the judge, So the judge says to me, Mr. Vukadinovich, I can't order the state to produce something that they say they don't have. Those were her words. And I said to her, I said, I understand, Judge. And she
That's fair.
was right. She was right. I said, I understand, Judge. But know this, Vedic is lying. There are pictures and there are letters. She's lying. So I said to Judge Harper, I said, I need some subpoenas because now we're getting ready for trial. Okay,
Right.
you want to play this game? Okay, let's go. So then she says, what do you need the subpoenas for? I said, I'm going to subpoena all these police officials who I believe have written letters about me. And so now what they didn't know, Sean, and I've written about this now since they didn't know it at the time. I had copies of those letters. I had those. Okay.
How did you get those?
Well, I had filed a civil rights lawsuit in a federal court, and I was able to get discovery. See, they don't want to play games in a federal court like they do in the local
Right.
court.
It's a whole different animal.
Yeah, a whole different animal. So I was able to get a whole lot of documents out of that case, and they didn't do their homework and figure out, But I think they probably knew right before the trial he's not bluffing because he's going to trial. I subpoenaed the sheriff, the police chief, the police that arrested me, the surrounding police chiefs in the surrounding areas and so forth. So they knew something was going to happen at this trial. See, I was going to put them all on the stand in front of the jury. Here's what the prosecutor said in this case when I was trying to get discovery that I'm entitled to under the law. There was no letters written, but then I'm going to put all of them on the stand. So they figured that out. And guess what? A day or two before the trial, the judge has another hearing, okay, and she dismisses the entire thing, okay, the entire case against me. And she very specifically, she said, you had no right to detain him. You had no probable cause to stop him. You had no right to detain him, and you had no right to arrest him. Okay, so she made that real clear. But then by that point in time, all these surrounding agencies, it became a mission. We're going to get Vukadinovich, right? I could go on and on. We don't have enough time here.
Yeah, I mean, does it ever? I mean, the question is, does it ever end?
Yeah, it finally did end. What happened was the kicker to the whole thing was they thought if they kept arresting me, it's going to cost me money to keep hiring lawyers. He's going to have a hard time because I'm a teacher. And right away, hey, how come this teacher is getting arrested? You can't get a teaching job. All of that stuff. That's what the game was. Okay, so what happened was, but I was, I said, you know what? If that's what it is, that's what it is.
What did you teach? What did you teach?
I have a double major in physical ed and industrial arts. I was teaching industrial arts at the time.
Okay.
Shop classes.
Shop teacher. Okay.
Yeah. So then what happened was I had 5. See, as I said, they kept doing it over and over and over. They weren't smart enough to figure out it wasn't working for them, so they kept doing it. And then everybody became the macho person. Yeah, I'll get him, blah, blah, blah. So then I had 5 separate criminal cases pending against me at one time. Not charges in one case. 5 separate
cases.
Right, that I had to appear on individually, all at one time. And several of them were anywhere from several months, and one of them was a year and a half old. Okay.
God.
Anyway, so I'm like, well, hey, they keep stopping me, but I'm not getting prosecuted. Every time we go to court, I win, but now they got them just hanging there against me. So they're just hanging there where I got to deal with it. So I walk into my lawyer's office. Well, back up. I decided to do a little bit of research on my own, and this is when I started the pro se thing. So pro se meaning you represent yourself in court. A lot of people ask me, what does that mean? It means
I was going to ask that question. And you just got another question here over on Instagram. Isaiah Skill, one of my closest friends, he wanted to know, how do you go from an industrial arts major to here? Like normally most people are not going to be like, well, my shop teacher also doubles as a lawyer.
Right. My good friend Earl Cunningham, who I taught with and coached with, he used to say to people, not bad for a shop teacher, huh? Going into the cases and so forth.
I need you to do me a favor there, Brian. Go like this for me. Hold your hands up for a second. I need you. Do you have all 10 of them?
I've got them all, luckily.
Okay, you're
Luckily,
not.
I wasn't a
How
bad
good of a
teacher.
shop?
I
Hold on.
was
How good of a shop teacher can you really
I
be
was
if you
able
have
to keep
all of
my
them?
fingers, so I was at least that good. Uh, very careful. So, and also, by the way, I might add, my students all kept their fingers as well,
All right,
which
fair
was
enough.
important to me. So, what happened was, how did a shop teacher end up knowing how to handle things in court? The answer was this. To be quite honest, it was almost a coin flip back in the day when I was young and deciding on what career path I was going to take. And as I said earlier, I really was heavy involved in basketball, and it was almost a coin flip. Should I go to law school and get a law degree? Because it did interest me at the time, but basketball was just in my blood.
I
Loved it.
respect it. I
So
respect it completely.
I asked my brother. I said, "What do you?" And my brother said, "Well, you love basketball, and so that's the way I went for that reason." So I always kind of had that interest in the back of my mind a little bit. And I've always been interested in civil rights issues. And my parents were immigrants, and all the stuff
Okay.
going on now. And I was always interested in that type of thing, and social justice and so forth. So that was always there for me. So, but the career path I took was, I became a teacher, and so I could teach and coach. And then what happened was, luckily, the legal instincts that I had in me stayed inside of me all those years, because when when it became too much, I had all these cases pending. It looked like this is never going to end. We're years into this, and this is never
Yeah.
going to end. And I thought with the lawyers it would stop. There was something, but it didn't. So what happened was, one day I went to a law library, and I did some research, and I found a rule in Indiana, a law in Indiana, that stated that in Indiana, and every state has a similar rule, a similar law. It's basically a speedy trial rule. Okay. Now
Okay.
some states vary on how long the process is, and I can't remember if it was 90 days or 100 days at the time, but the law in Indiana was, when you arrest a person in Indiana, that person has to be in trial within, I can't remember if it was 90 days or 180 days, or the charges must be dismissed. So I found that law. Okay. So I'm like, whoa, and I'm reading it. Am I reading this right? Am I reading this right? Because I had stuff hanging there for months and even a year and a
Right.
half. So I make a copy of it. I go home. I tell my brother, I said, listen, I said, tomorrow I'm going to go speak to the lawyer. And I'm not going to, I'm not going to be afraid to say names here, because that's a lot of people will say, well,
Right.
if he doesn't say names, we don't. His name was Calvin Hubble. Okay. So I told my brother, I said, well, I'm going to go see Hubble tomorrow. We're going to have a discussion here about this. So then I go in there, I told the secretary, I said, hey, I want to see Mr. Hubble. Do you have an appointment? I said, no, you tell him I'm here and I need to talk to him. So she's messing around with it or whatever. So I just basically opened the door and walked in, to be honest about it. So I walk in, and he knew just by looking at me, something was up here. Okay. So I said, Cal, listen, I said, I have a question for you. Okay. Is the law in Indiana state that once a person is arrested, that person has to be brought to trial? As I said, I can't remember if it was 90 days or 100 days. At the time, I
Right.
knew what it
Whatever.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I said, is that what the law says in Indiana? A very specific question. And these lawyers, sometimes you're paying them money and they want to play games with you. And I don't allow that to happen with me. So he says to me, his exact words were, well, it's not that easy. I said, Cal, I didn't ask you if it was easy. That was not my question. I asked you if that's what the law states. Okay. Yes or no? Well, it's not that easy, and there's a lot of things involved. I said, no, what I'm reading into the law, it is that easy, because
It says what it says.
exactly. So I said, here's what's going to happen. This was my directive to him. And people need to understand. See, a lot of people don't understand that they're actually, when they hire lawyers, they're actually the employer, the boss.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that
A
makes sense.
lot of times lawyers intimidate, But with me, when I'm paying you, I'm calling the shots. Okay, I'm the boss. So I told him, I said, by the end of the business day tomorrow, I will expect you to have a motion to dismiss each one of these cases by the end of the business day tomorrow. That was what I told him in those words. And he said to me, I can remember this like it was yesterday. Well, that's not going to happen. I said, well, it is going to happen because either you're going to do it or I'm going to do it, but it's going to happen tomorrow. Those were my words to him. And then he said to me, you're not filing a damn thing. Those were his exact words to me. And I said, Cal, listen, as I told you, I will be filing these motions tomorrow. You're fired. You're done. You're history. Okay? You're out. Okay? So I go home. And now remember now, back in those days, it wasn't, we didn't have all the fancy stuff with computers like we do now.
That's my whole thing. And you've got some other questions that are popping up here. And that's my whole thing is that, I don't think most people think about it. You weren't pulling up a YouTube video that said how to, you had to physically go to the law library. You had to open up a book. You had to ask somebody, hey, if I'm looking for this, where do I find it?
Exactly. And put the book on copy machines and, all of that stuff.
You knew the Dewey Decimal System, all that kind of stuff.
Exactly. And let me just finish up.
Please go ahead.
Let me just finish the end of that story. So then I went home. I had my old Smith Corona typewriter that most people probably don't even know what it is.
I had a Brothers myself.
I had my old Smith Corona from my college days. So I typed up each motion. I had to do it each time separately because you don't have the computer stuff back then. So then I take it to the courthouse. I filed all of the motions, and guess what? The judge granted every one of them and dismissed every case against me.
Wow.
Now, think about it. Shouldn't the lawyer have been, saying to me, hey, we're in good shape. This is
what paid by the hour. He gets paid by the hour. He ain't trying to hear that shit.
They want to keep this stuff going as long as it can. See, and people are, they just figure everybody's just kind of, they don't know any better.
Right.
So from that point on, I said, no more lawyers for me. And that's when then I started really getting serious and doing, I started going to trials and I started buying law books and learning the law. I did a trial. I did a federal. Well, you got some questions here. I don't want you to keep your audience away here.
Well, the questions were important because one of them was Isaiah wants to know, can you still ball? Can you still play?
You know what? I don't want to sound like I'm bragging, but yes.
Come on now. You still got little skills to it?
Yeah. It's all I used to do, growing up out here in the country. I nailed up a basket, out in our back in the field back here. Even in the
something for you. I'm going to blow your mind. Brian, I'm about to blow your mind. I'm about to blow your mind right now. You ready?
Go ahead.
So what is the birthplace of basketball?
It's in Springfield, Massachusetts.
Nope. That is a big, completely left turn for you real quick because of somebody who loves basketball. So there's actually right now a big controversy that Naismith, when he invented it in a YMCA, hung a basket in Springfield. Springfield is losing their mind because there is a picture that predates what they say is the start of basketball of the first professional basketball team in Herkimer, New York.
Really?
It predates Naismith and what he did. The picture's older. It's been proven, and it was a team that was started, and it was in Herkimer, New York. And Springfield's losing their mind. Like, no,
I bet they are. Well,
So that I thought you would appreciate that.
I can tell you this. I'm gonna get that information because I have a lot of discussions with my basketball buddies.
Yeah.
And one of my trick questions to them is I will ask them, who is University of Kansas Jayhawks basketball is really good, always, forever. So my question to them is, who is the only losingest basketball coach. There's been only one coach in Kansas history, Jayhawk history, that had a losing record. And my question is, who is that?
Who
Okay,
is it?
it's who we thought was the founder of basketball, James Naismith.
Oh, okay. Well, here you go.
The guy who founded it is actually the one that was had the only losing season. But I'm gonna that's what you just told me is gonna be another one now.
You'll like this. So here it is, real quick. Alternative history claims suggest that basketball was invented in Herkimer, New York, in late 1890, early 1891, nearly a year before Dr. James Naismith accepted 1891 Springfield, Massachusetts invention. Evidence suggests that Lambert Will, a 16-year-old YMCA director, developed the game in Herkimer with his first game played February 7th, 1891.
And that was in New York.
Yep. So
I'm writing as you're talking here because
I thought you would appreciate that.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
And Isaiah says my ancestors played basketball with their hips. He's Mexican. I don't think that was basketball, dude. That might have been like, would that be basketball or would that be volleyball? That's a good question there. But he says you're still shaking and breaking ankles. But he did have a good question. Now, the fact that you got in this, and I understand that like it was all these things, and we're never going to get to your books or nothing like that. It's just not going to happen.
Fine.
This is absolutely fascinating to me.
But honestly, the books, I don't like to come across as I'm trying to sell books. I want
to sell books. That's what you need to do. Sell lots of books. So what we get back to though is, was there a family background in law, or was it just you were that type of person? Once you got a hold of something, that was it. This is you.
No family background. My parents came here from the former Yugoslavia after the war, and just cleaned the buildings. And my dad worked on the railroad. My mom cleaned the buildings in Chicago, and so forth. And so no formal education type things going on. It was just something that growing up and watching what my mom went through in life, she spoke broken English and so forth, and how things were back in the day and social justice issues and so forth. I just, there was something that just, drove me to it. So it just kind of, then I started, I'd see stuff on TV and trials going on. And then I started going to some big trials in Chicago, some real big ones. And then I just kind of got hooked on it, started learning it. And then I started representing myself. And then when I did that motion that was granted, that kind of got it started for me. And then I've done several. In fact, as we sit here today, I got a huge case going in the federal U.S. Court of Appeals in Chicago against a very, very well-known retired federal Court of Appeals judge. His name is Richard Posner, for breach of contract. And I'm representing myself in that case as well. And in 2016, as we spoke earlier about the hard time with the teaching jobs and so forth, I lost my job in 2012. I was a teacher, lost my job. This new guy came in, new principal. I had a great principal before that who retired, Joe Fetty, retired. And then this guy came in from Hammond, Indiana. He was just a disaster. And then he calls me in after my 8th year and says, I'm not coming back. Well, see, what they don't tell you is why. All the stuff's still going on with these lawyers in the background. All that stuff's going on, but they can't say it to you. But I knew what was going on. So to make a long story short, I asked for a meeting with the school board over it, and they wouldn't meet with me. They said, you meet with the superintendent. I said, no, that's not good enough. You're the school board. I want to meet with you. The superintendent's rubber stamping this principal, and you're actually my employer, not the superintendent. And then, so they said no. So then what happened was I did it myself, pro se. I filed the lawsuit in federal court in Hammond. And then in 2016, it took 4 years for this to get into trial. There was a lot of work involved with it. I got over the summary judgment. Those are real hard to get over. I got over that. And then we have a trial in 2016. It was a 5-day jury trial. And I'm representing myself. The school corporation's represented by a bunch of lawyers and so forth. And a week before the trial, the judge says to me, Judge Simon, Philip Simon, he was the chief judge at the time. He said to me, we had a conference a week before. He He said, you know, they want to pay you $150,000 to settle the case and not go to trial. And I said, no, that's not going to happen. Okay. So he got mad about that, actually. He said, I said $150,000. I said, no, I heard you the first time, Judge. The answer is no. Okay. What they did to me, now we're going to go through a trial. Okay. Because again, as I said before, the principle of things actually is very important to me. I turned down $150,000. I could have got nothing. It's hard to win those trials. So I said no. So what happened was we go into the trial, 5-day jury trial. We pick a jury. We do all that stuff. And then at the end of the trial, the jury rules in my favor and awards me $204,000. Okay, actually $54,000 more than what the judge wanted me to accept. And so then a couple of weeks later, one of the lawyers calls me, and he says, and the lawyer, their lead lawyer, her name was Marcia Volk. She's been divorced several times. I can't keep up with her names, but it was Bugala at the time, Marcia Volk Bugala, something like that. So then she hated me because we have a history, her and I. It's always same ones following me around all the time, you know, just like the cop thing with these lawyers, same thing. You know, as if there's not lawyers, there's millions of lawyers that you got to get the same one every time. So I beat her at the trial, and then she has her lackey call me and say to me, he said to me, Marcia wants to know if you'd be willing to accept less. And then in return, she said that they won't appeal the decision. So I said, Nick, listen, here's what you should tell Marcia. You tell Marcia, these were my exact words. I said, Nick, tell Marcia that I thoroughly enjoyed kicking her ass at the trial, okay? And I will even more thoroughly enjoy kicking her ass in the appeal. That's what you should tell her, word for word, okay? So needless to say, that was the end of that. And they wrote a check for $204,000. So everybody was telling me you can't win, you have to have a lawyer in federal court. Well, you know what? I took their suggestions, well. I understood what people were trying to tell me, but those people didn't understand me quite well. That when I make up my mind I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it.
I mean, I can hear that. I can hear that.
Come hell or high water, and you got to have a little bit of that in you to do this kind of stuff.
Well, give me one second here, folks. It's that last call we got to make here. The New Scotland Spirits last call for those cold days and long nights. This episode is brought to you by New Scotland Spirits because February colds. The nights are long, and you deserve something that's warm more than just your hands. Whether you're pairing it with a quiet night in a fire pit with friends, or that I survived another day feeling, New Scotland Spirits delivers small batch whiskey made right here in upstate New York. Bold, smooth, and built to take the edge off of winter. Find your bottle of New Scotland Spirits at newscotlandspirits.com. New Scotland Spirits. Pour what the season's calling for. Listen, folks, if you're curious what Brian's got going on, he's also got a couple of books he's written. Make sure you're checking out Brian Vukadinovich, Vukadinovich. His name's so long, it's hard for me to keep up with the scroller as it's going across here. So make sure you check out what he's got going on there. And Brian, I mean, I'm just listening to all this. So, I mean, you've got the book, the two different books. You currently have this case for breach of contract, but the saying always goes back to a person who has himself as a client, or what is it? What is it as a fool for a client or something? I know it's fool for a client.
I can read it to you because do you remember the O.J. Simpson trial?
Absolutely.
Okay. The lawyer for O.J. Simpson, he gave me a quote for my book. And here's
really?
Yeah, I got it right here. It's on the cover of my book, Motion for Justice, I Rest My Case. And here's his quote. Brian, congratulations on your victory. You have gone against the age-old saying, an attorney who represents himself has a fool for a client.
There you go.
Robert Shapiro, member of Dream Team and O.J. Simpson trial. So a lot of people will say that, and like Shapiro said, I've proven that wrong. Sometimes you can be your best client because you see, and the way I look at it, I'm going to work harder for myself than a
Yeah.
lawyer is going to work for me.
Well, what has been
So,
their reactions when they realize you? Yeah, I mean, you have a degree, but I mean, let's be honest.
uh,
I'm not trying to sound like a dick or nothing, but you have a degree in shop. You have a degree in
oh,
woodworking, and here are these people that they've taken the bar, they've gone through all this stuff, and here you are. You're just a well-rounded, well-read person who understands how to put two words together and make sense out of them.
yeah, well, I'm just a regular guy, and I have, as I said, when I make up my mind, what's right is right, what's wrong is wrong, and you have to fight the fight. And actually, what you said, Sean, when people will say, "Well, how can a shop teacher?" See,
Right.
to me, that actually worked in my favor because when I'm going up against all these lawyers, and I'm going up against a bunch of them now from New York and Chicago and Indiana, and they think they're going to step on me, and well, he's just a shop teacher kind of a thing. See, I think that works in my favor because I know
Absolutely.
what I know. And it's like, but this is why they hate me because see, like that Bugala, I pretty
Right.
much ran her out of private practice. uh,
Really.
yeah, she was done. She was her thing was she represented school corporations. She made a living representing school
Okay.
corporations in Indiana. And in under a year's time after that trial, because it became news all over the place, it was, it became national news actually, because actually nobody's ever won a federal civil rights trial representing themselves. So it became a big deal. So then what happened was the next thing I heard was she's no longer, see, nobody, the school corporations, well, we can't hire her. She lost to a shop teacher. How could we hire her to represent us? So,
That's a fair argument. Like
yeah, yeah,
you
well,
lost to the
absolutely.
shop teacher. I don't
Yeah,
need you over here.
absolutely. Why would you hire, why would we hire you? You couldn't beat the shop teacher.
Our
So,
best shop teacher's only got 9 fingers. You couldn't beat that
yeah,
guy. He
yeah,
can't. He smokes 2 packs a day and has
yeah,
got nine
yeah,
fingers.
yeah. No, honestly, Sean, when I walk into a trial or
That's
a hearing or
impressive,
whatever,
dude.
the more lawyers there, the more it motivates me, honestly.
I
They
love
want
it.
to intimidate. It motivates me. The more lawyers there, have at it.
You remind me of like the male version of I can't think of her name. Aaron Brockovich. You're like the
Right.
male Aaron
I,
Brockovich.
I know that. Yeah, I know that story.
Yeah,
I know that story.
that's who you are. You're like, I mean, she had no background. She just knew how to read people, and that's what it sounds like you do. So, how about do you do anything to work with other people to assist other people, or is it pretty much like, hey, listen, I stay in my lane and what I do, or do you work with other people?
Well, the answer is yes. In fact, when I get done with the interview here, I'm positive that I'm going to have emails coming in from people wanting help. I do it all the time. I mean, I could go on and on for all the things. And then, see, to make a long story short, after that trial, this Posner, after he retired from the judiciary, he hired me to be the executive director of the Posner Center of Justice for Pro Se's. After he heard about how I won that trial, he said, "Hey, you could help us because this is what we're going to do. We're going to help people represent themselves." So then I got involved with helping people from all over the country when all that was going on. But there's not a day that goes by where my phone doesn't ring or I don't get emails and I don't talk to people about their cases and so
Do you
forth.
do any
Yeah,
speaking engagements or anything like that? Travel around speaking on this?
yeah. Actually, I spoke to the Yale Law School class. I spoke at Indiana University's uh, their social justice conference for Martin Luther King Day. I spoke there. I was interviewed on Pro Se Nation television out of New Jersey about how I represented myself, and I've done quite a bit of it actually. Uh, so I actually have I'm listed on a speaker's website for those kinds of things. So yeah, I've been very busy. I've done a lot of public speaking. I've done a lot of public writing. If people go on my website, they can see the writings that I've done, the articles that I've written, and so forth, and some of the interviews.
All right, so let's talk for a second. Now we're gonna make a left turn for a minute. All right,
Sure.
Brian, this is important stuff. All right, we're 4 weeks away, about 4 weeks away from the most important time in sports all year long. I'll watch the Super Bowl, but if my team's not there, I don't care. I know we're going to make a left turn. Who takes March Madness?
Well, I'm going to tell you honestly, Sean, up until 2 years ago, I could have named it to the T. After they brought in the transfer rule and the NIL with the money stuff and everything, it's just changed forever, that landscape.
Too hard to track.
It's honestly, I would have come up with a team in a minute 2 years ago. Now it's just these teams are all, everybody's new. I don't like it, to be honest about it. What's going on with it, and it's not going to be your typical, Kansas and those.
I don't know. The Zags are number 6, Illinois is number 5, Duke's number 4, UConn 3, Michigan 2, and Arizona 1 right now. Come on, I know we made a left turn into this, but I needed your perspective.
Okay, I'm gonna. It's almost a tie, but I'll pick one. I was gonna say between Michigan State with Izzo and Duke. Now Duke blew it last year, and they're having a hell of a year this year. And if Krzyzewski, Coach K, would have been coaching last year, they would have won that game last year. They blew it in the last minute. So I'm gonna go out on a limb here and just say Duke.
All right, this is gonna be important. I'm gonna go with the Zags. You're gonna go with Duke.
I love the Zags. I love the coach there, but they just, for some reason, every year they're fantastic, and they just can't win it. And I don't know what, I love them. I love the Zags.
And I know we're making a left turn from everything else, but I had to bring this up because, and my team's not even going to make it. They won't even make the NIT because I'm a big Terps guy. I'm a big Terps fan.
Maryland?
Yeah.
I could go. Hey, Lefty Drysdale.
Oh God! Listen, Queen is down and playing for the Pelicans right now and making it happen. I love that kid. I have a friend that's in New Orleans. I told him, I said, I'm gonna have to make my way down to New Orleans, and I just want to see Queen play. I just want to see him play.
Now Maryland is an awesome. I go back still to the Lefty Drysdale when Lefty Drysdale took that program over back in the day. And
a lot of people don't realize that's where Midnight Madness comes from. Is University of Maryland.
I think Drysdale started that.
Yep. He started Midnight Madness because you couldn't start before whatever the day was.
Right.
So as soon as the clock turned, he had them on the court, and they would just run some drills, nothing crazy. So University of Maryland is where Midnight Madness started at.
I would be happy if Maryland won it.
It's only happened once, and we did it, and I loved it. Fear the Turtle. That was with Smith and X-Ray Hip and all those guys. But listen, brother, you have Brian, and I know I had to make that left turn real quick.
No, you're in my territory, man.
I know. Listen, I've always said I'll know when I've made success in life when I can take the entire time of March Madness off and just watch games or go to a couple games. I've never been, as much as I love watching college basketball, I've never been to a Division I game. My daughter played Division III and made it to the NCAAs in her college. The only time they ever made it, she made it there. But yeah, I mean, I love all
I wish you were here right now. I would take you into this room back here. You should see all the basketball stuff I got from way back in the day, from John Wooden from UCLA, and I got all kinds of stuff I could talk about.
I was watching a video the other day recently, and we'll make this the last thing, but where they were just going over the physicality. Like, I don't watch the NBA anymore just because I miss the physicality of like Isaiah Thomas and not Pete Maravich. That was before. God, what was his name? I could see him. They used to call him the Enforcer. He played on the Celtics. God, I can see his face, dark hair. I can't think of the name right now, but all these guys that were just brutal. So my buddy's not here. I'm going to ask a question, then we're going to get into the last piece of this. Do you have a winning court case meal? Like, hey, you won this trial. This is your celebratory meal after you win one.
Not really.
No.
If you would have said, what did you buy yourself after you won you won the case? Okay. That one I bought a nice big TV for my brother to put in his room. And right here in front of me, I got this really nice 65-inch TV, and I watch all my basketball games on there and so forth. So that was kind of like my gift to myself from the trial.
I love it. Look, folks, if you want to know what Brian's got going on, you can check out Brian Vukadinovich, VUKADINOVICH.com. His books are all on there. You can read about his books. Obviously, we know we can Google him because he's all over with winning cases and the things that he's got going on. Do you have any speaking engagements coming up, Brian?
Not yet, but I'm working on a couple as we speak here. So I just did one in Terre Haute, Indiana, about 4 or 5 months ago or so. So they're starting to build up a little bit more here. So I'm open to them, for people that are, organizations and so forth.
We'll definitely reach out, folks, if you got questions for Brian. And Isaiah, Sean, where do you get these glasses you're drinking? They're so classy. I feel like I could listen to him all day in a madman with that glassware. So just so you know, this glassware, Isaiah, came from a yard sale. And I have no idea where they got them from, but they're very classy. You don't see them like this anymore.
Used to go with my mom to the garage sales and stuff. We got some of the neatest stuff at these things. Absolutely.
My wife and I used to say we were yard sale pirates, going to all the yard sales, just pirate looking for other people's stuff. But he said a journal. But as always, folks, before we close this up, Brian, don't log off on me. We're going to talk for a minute after the show. The guest always gets the final word. So what is our final word for tonight, Brian?
Okay, for everybody, stand up and fight back. Okay, we're all entitled to fairness and justice, and we all want to do the right thing. And when you're wronged, don't let anybody tell you that you have to back down. If you know you're right, stand up and fight back. Sometimes it's hard, but you can do it. I did it, and if I can do it, anybody can do it. So do it.
Alrighty, folks, be sure to push your stool in.
This has been a Second Front podcast presentation found on Apple, Spotify, and wherever podcasts can be found.